Can you tell I haven't washed my hair? You'd tell me, right? Right? Oh God. You'd think by now I'd know how to figure this out. Okay. I think I did it. Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. I am going to be talking more about breakups today. Y'all thought I was leaving you high and dry after my last breakup video, but I wouldn't do that to you. Besides the fact that I just dropped you on the floor, that's my bad. If you saw my last video, I talked about breaking up with your partner because you want independence and space, but I did not talk about how to deal with a breakup, and I have gone through 3 breakups myself, and each one has been smooth, but also a bit sad, and you know, that's usually how it goes. So I thought I would give you guys what I usually do to help cope with breakups or just sad events in my life, because it works for me. Whether or not it works for you is totally up to you to decide, so just sit back and listen to me blabber, as always. Also, just look at how I'm sitting right now, like pro YouTuber? I think so. Okay, back to me. So when I go through a breakup, I'm not a super emotional person. I don't like to be sad for a long time, but it definitely is a shock to the system. Assuming that you are with this person for any given amount of time, you've developed a routine with this person, you're used to getting texts from them, you're used to constantly talking to somebody, you're used to doing little things that you never really thought much of until they were gone. For me, one of the most shocking things was not having to use my phone anymore. I don't know about you, but I rarely text anybody on a daily basis besides the person I'm dating. So it was really weird to suddenly get no good morning or good night text, to not be constantly talking to somebody, you know, the huge. So even if you go through a breakup and you don't find yourself to be particularly sad or emotional about it, it is a shock to the system, and the things that I'm going to tell you today are just a nice way to reset yourself and get it all out of your system so you can move on. Like I said, I'm not a really emotional person, so for me, I find it helpful to just set aside a time where I can be an emotional wreck. It doesn't come super natural to me to cry it out. I know it does for some people, but it doesn't really to me. And at first I would just kind of live into that and not unleash any of my emotions. But I found that it ended up catching up to me and biting me in the ass later down the line. So I started adapting and making it so that I would just let it out in the moment so that I wouldn't have to deal with it later. Because as much as your girl likes to procrastinate, nobody wants to suddenly have tears down the line when they're technically uncalled for. So what I mean by setting aside a time is sometimes the hardest part is knowing when to stop. Yes, you should let out all of your emotions and not feel like you have to hold anything back, but if you're constantly feeding into the fact that you're sad and not giving yourself a timeline as to when you want to start feeling a different way, you're just going to be digging yourself into this hole where you're just sad all the time, and eventually it becomes day after day after day, and you forget how long you've actually been sad for, and it seems more unnatural to stop being sad. Also, this thing is a little long. Let me just tilt it down my bad. So for me, I like to set aside 3 days of being sad and kind of out of it and mopey, with one of those, typically the first day, being the one where I actually let all of my emotions out. What that looks like for me is spending the first day in bed, grieving, moping, trying to force out some tears if I'm feeling like it, and feeding into the sadness and letting it kind of envelop me as a human so that I can fully get it out of my system and set myself up to reset and be happier after. And then the next 2 days I will spend using my next few tips that actually help to kickstart the happiness factor again and really push the reset button on my emotions and my feelings, and basically just propel me into my new single life. Now, this whole 3-day structure might not work for you. You might need 5 days, you might need a couple weeks. Who knows? It's really up to you and how bad the breakup was, how long the relationship was, how much of a toll it's taking on your emotions. But for me, I give myself 3 days because I know myself and I know I don't need more than 3 days. Girl got shit to do. What I'm saying is pick your timeline and stick with it. It's basically like setting a goal for yourself of when you want to feel rejuvenated by setting aside the time that you need to feel shitty. Next thing I will do is make a fire playlist. None of that sad, sleepy time music. I don't want you to put any of the sad Adele music, Ed Sheeran, Billie Eilish. I don't want none of that, okay? I want some upbeat fire tunes. Really weird fact, but when I was going through a breakup, for some reason, Vance Joy was my shit. I was belting that stuff in my car, in the shower, and for some reason, it lifted my spirits. So just find songs that are going to make you feel really uplifted and empowered and inspired and not more sad. I know a lot of people who really like to dive into their emotions by listening to sad music, which might be fine for the first day when you're sobbing and you're feeding into your sadness. But after that, you need something that's gonna kickstart the way that you wanna feel post-breakup. So make that fire playlist and play it as often as possible. And then the last thing I like to do is go to my happy place. Obviously, you know what a happy place is. I don't need to explain that to you. But basically, it's really important to find a space that's not necessarily somewhere that you're used to going to, like your room. It's nice to actually have a spot where you can physically get away from your problems. And it doesn't have to be just one place. It can be a multitude of places. As long as you have a space where you know that once you get to, you can feel happy and calm and rejuvenated, that's the kind of place you want to find. So for me, when I was going through a breakup, I was constantly searching for really nice viewpoints. For me, a happy place is somewhere that's really high up with a nice view, which is not unique or anything like that. But for me, what helps is to actually be high up enough so that everything below me looks so small and it makes my problems feel really small. I find that when you're putting yourself in that perspective where you're really far away and high up from the rest of the world, you're putting a bunch of space between you and your problems, you and the people that are causing you sadness, you and your stress, you and your life. And for me, it's so helpful to think of it like that and to see the world that way. And when I go to my happy place, I instantly feel calm and rejuvenated, and I just feel so at peace from seeing the world in that perspective. Also, when you go to your happy place, don't forget your earphones because you're gonna want to be listening to your fire playlist that you made. Anyways, those were just some of my tips as to how I like to get over a breakup. There's obviously the ones that everyone likes to go to, like keeping yourself distracted or working on small projects by yourself or spending time with friends. But those are the few that I like to do for myself and on my own time to really help bridge that kind of initial shock and the emotional stress to your new life of being single and hopefully happy. So if it helped, go ahead and comment and subscribe if you want, and I will hopefully see you in my next one. Bye!